Okay, you're still taping these things? Did you never tape?
Yeah, no, I'm not. Oh, hang on a second. I'm okay. Hilchos Brachos, the first perek. Okay, I'm a mitzvah siachas, and it holds one mitzvah. V'hi, and it is levarach Hashem Hakadosh Baruch Hu, to bless the name of the whole blessed be Hashem achachila after eating. We'll explain this mitzvah in the following part. Perek Rishon Lachal mitzvah seminat Torah. It's a positive mitzvah. Levarach achachila to bless Hashem. That is obviously as Rambam said in the Hakdama. In the heading, after eating mazin, after eating satiating food, remember it says, "V'chalta," you should eat. You will eat. V'savat, you will become satisfied. V'rach l'Shem lekech, and you bless Hashem your God. V'nechayv me'atayr al yisab. The chiv me'atayr is to bless Hashem after eating, only if a person is satisfied. Remember it says, "V'savat v'rach." If you're satisfied, then you eat. However, the chamor mesaken shafile al kazayis. Even if a person eats one kazayis of whatever it was, if he ate from that food enough to satisfy himself, if he ate one kazayis of that same food, if he was not satisfied, he's chayav to bench b'drabanan b'varach achrav. He benches afterwards. Okay, the pashut we're talking about the 5 grains, right? Food from the 5 grains. Because the truth is, when it says you're satisfied, the concept of sevi of satisfaction only comes from lechem.
Only come from the 5 grains.
Yeah. And the Chum also instituted in the Varech and to make a bracha on any food, not just bread. Techila prior to eating it, only afterwards when you benefit from the food. If a person smells a good smell, Yivarech makes a bracha only afterwards may you have hana from the item. Even if a person intends to eat only the tiniest amount or drink the tiniest amount, Mevarach, he must first make a bracha, and then only afterwards he's allowed to have hana. A person who has hana without making this required bracha, the Chumrah instituted, mal, it's as if he was moil b'hektish. Now, obviously, it's not real me'ilah, because real me'ilah is matter. This is minarabana. Real me'ilah is by hektish, and this is not hektish. This is just stam items. But since it says la Hashem or it's only wants to eat, so in a certain sense, just like you're misappropriating, misusing based on Migdash material, if you use it for anything besides the base of Migdash or for the carbon, so too, if you use something without first of all acknowledging that the Eibishter is the one who made it, it's also misusing it for the wrong reasons. It's also besides the chiyuv to bench, make a bracha prior to eating any food. There's also a chiyuv to make a bracha after eating any food or any drink. Not just bread. By the way, there's no chiyuv to make a bracha achrona after smell. There's various reasons. Either because by the time you make the bracha achrona, once you smell, it's as if it's digested already, because it's already gone. Or you could say that a smell is not as though shear, it's always a mashroom. There's not enough. It's different view in why there's no bracha achrona on smelling. Now this chiyuv to make a bracha after you eat or drink anything, provided you drank a revius, which is what the quarter of a lug, which is in our contemporary terms, either 3 ounces, 3.5 ounces, and you had a kazayas, which is like an ounce, right? Okay, so that's the chiyuv, the minimum of the chiyuv. So there's no minimum amount to make a bracha prior to eating. There is a minimum amount to make for bracha required for after eating, a bracha achrona, right?
I think that's how they make buzar.
That's the minimum, exactly, yeah. Right?
You do whatever they want.
Yeah. Good. The makkah, the chamim, for the chiyuv of making a bracha on smell is called a shalom to halakah. Any every soul praise Hashem, but also every breath. In other words, what is the neshama have enough from smell? Also, in this form, it says in the pasuk by when Yitzchak tells Yaakov, that the aroma is like the field that Hashem benched. You see that an aroma is something which is appropriate to make a bracha on. That's in Mabena B'chai, I think he says over here. Yeah, Mabena B'chai. Say it called Shulchan Shel Arba by Mabena B'chai. Right. Matemes says Yichah Bracha. Matemes is lost in the cave. A woman who tastes. Why a woman? Because usually women are one of the kitchens. That's why precious. A person, any human being who tastes. Bracha is not required prior or afterwards. Add revius, unless you can taste the revius. So one way of understanding the Rambam is you taste it and you spit it out. But fact is, you're going to keep some of it in your mouth. But since your kavod is not to eat, but just to taste and see if the chalk's ready, the soup is good, there's no chiyuv make a bracha. But if you're tasting a revius, spitting that out, so then the mashut that contains in your mouth is significant that you make a bracha. But if you taste it and you swallow it, even if you drop it, you have to make a bracha no matter what. That's one way of saying pshat now. Other way of saying pshat is no, even if you taste it and swallow it, you're just tasting it, there's no chiyuv to eat, to make a bracha b'shena, unless you taste the revius. Right? That's the other way of learning pshat.
Same goes with water. If you drink less than a revius.
Water is mitzad b'chal unless you're thirsty, no chiyuv bracha. But here, this is chickens we're talking about. But yeah.
So if you drink less than a revius, oranges,
Yeah.
It's like for cooks.
Yeah, exactly. Now you want to know Maisa how you want to put the Rambam? What we say? Look at
Salt, too much salt.
Look at Brachos in Perek Ches. Over there talks about how we. Basically, is both approaches. Okay, back there. Halach Gimel. Just make a bracha when you have a benefit from something in this world. Make a bracha on every mitzvah. Funny, first Rambam says.
Where's the Islamic between one to the other?
We'll see. The Rambam is just putting all the halachas and brachas in one place. But the chiyuv na'atayna to make a bracha is when? On food. Not on a mitzvah, mind you. So therefore the Rambam talks about that first. Then he's saying also Chachamim instituted the concept of a bracha when it comes to a mitzvah. Yeah. The achakach yaseh we say only afterwards do the mitzvah. Yeah. Brachas Rabbi Sikh Cham Derech Shelfa. He does all the many brachas besides for mitzvahs and food. The Cham instituted as a way of praising the Eibishter. Okay. Every day we say Shalei Asani Goy, right? Yeah, all these brachas that we say. Or we have a request, make a bracha on the Shemar for the things we need. All these things, these are all the purposes of remembering Hashem constantly. Remember, the Rambam told us in the Hakdama to Sefer Ava that the purpose of the Sefer is to all the mitzvahs that we're supposed to do on a regular basis, consistently, to remember the Eibush on a regular basis, to constantly have the Eibush on our minds. You didn't have a no, you didn't do a mitzvah. There's regular brachas you're supposed to say every day to remain more God conscious. Turns out, generally speaking, we can divide the brachas to three categories. The brachas and another bracha for you have and you benefit from this world. Brachas and mitzvahs, the brachas and brachas haida, and the brachas that we make to acknowledge the Eibishter. They're acknowledging the Eibishter by praising Him, acknowledging Him, and asking from Him our needs. Again, I'm emphasizes to remember Hashem constantly and to fear Him. Hey. Nusach kal bracha is the nusach of all the brachas. Well, almost all the brachas. There also are some brachas that Ezra based. They take them. Ezra is Bezin with Masakim, but there are brachas that came later. And the later there are also the constant brachas that existed earlier, but there wasn't like set in stone. You could use your own little eloquency if you wanted to. Like davening, right? You use your own nusach. Ezra came and made a set nusach for all the brachas, for most of them at least. Now, it's not appropriate to change them, but nor to add to them. It's not, or to subtract. It's not appropriate. It's not pasnished. Then there was a stronger lashon b'chal mashanem med baby change from the coin. Shetavacham minted brachas. Chachamim minted by brachas, meaning the terminology that they established. Ein elatay is making a big mistake. In other words, there's two levels. It depends on the shina apparently. In other words, there's a change you can make. It's not exactly how the Chacham decided it. So that's in a roy. It's basically the same idea. If you change it significantly, that's considered a real tos. Although it's funny, in that context, he uses the term Matavei Shetava, which is more exact, not less exact. So I'm not sure how that pshat works. But okay, whatever. Basically, stick to the book. Follow the manual. Any bracha that does not mention the Eibishter's name, the Eibishter's kingship, is not considered a real bracha. Even though you use the terminology of Chanu and Verachum and whatever, it has to have Eibishter's name. In fact, it's not unless it's a bracha next to each other, next to another bracha. Right. You have many times a bracha because it's next to the bracha. Well, either it's coming after a bracha preceding it, like Abbas Olam. Let's start bracha ta Hashem and sometimes if I can't, let's say Baruch Atah Hashem Yitzam Ha'edah. It doesn't say Melech Olam, it just says Baruch Atah Hashem. So sometimes if it's one next to the other, I think it goes in both directions. Even the bracha prior, we sometimes don't say the Melech because of this reason, but at least not in the end of it. Good. So that's where you have exception to this concept. Fine. We're up to over here. Vav. Kol bracha is calling the Gemara b'Choloshin. A bracha can be said in any language. You want to say in English, say in English. I think the Pasuk can discuss that the Eibishter's name should be said in Lashon Kodesh if possible. Right? So I think people, I think there's a book for that, I don't know if from the Babish, but there's a book for Balei Tshuva about how to daven in English, and they say the Eibishter's name is written phonetically, Adonia or whatever. Oh. I believe so. Yeah. As long as you make it exactly as much as possible to the Chama Masakin. It's interesting when they made the Siddur in English, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokei L'Olam, blessed be Hashem, Lord our God. If they ever wanted to daven, that was like a very. I think the Rebbe was one who made it that way. Yeah. Other English Siddurim that other Lubavitchers put out from Kahas changed it a little bit because I guess for copyright reasons. But I think that was the I believe so. Because Kahas has the copyright on that English translation. The other English Siddurim,
that's English translation.
Well, there are other ones, whatever. But anyway, the point is that they changed. But that's what the Rebbe was particular about. What? The English translation of Baruch Atah of Hashem Elokeinu should be Lord our God. Others Siddurim write other terminology. I think the different expressions. God
was the first one to approve making this thing.
English? I believe no. I mean that was something the Rebbe specifically wanted when Mangel's telling you remain the Siddur. I believe that was something that the Rebbe was The same mice that when they Rebbe wanted to, when they stick him out, they should bring it to Yasser Best Elevation. Why use it?
Say again?
When the English Siddur was published,
Yes.
Rebbe wanted, I think it was Rabbi Mangel, who was the one who made it, should take it to Rabbi Soloveitchik, show it to him. So when he showed it to him, the first thing Soloveitchik said, he didn't take it from him. He says, "How did you translate Erev Shabbos in Pasach Hayo, Achaka Taluch Kaddish?" Did you write the Holy Apple Orchard? I don't know if he asked that. He asked. He said, "I just wrote it. In ACHAL Achakal."
Yeah.
He said, "Okay, say it." I was like, "Give me this." Now I'm going to look at it. That was his.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
When did the English Siddur come out? It came out
In the 70s, no 60s. I don't know.
not in the 60s.
No 70s. Whatever it was.
I don't think there's any.
that he approved to use the word.
No, so it says the Rambam says over here that you can say bracha in any lashon, but they say in English, what's the exact proper lashon to use if you say in English? So I think Al Pidin is supposed to actually say Hashem is in lashon kodesh. If you do say it in English, obviously the Rebbe says particularly should be this way, Lord our God. That's the.
He says Hashem, you're not allowed to say it.
Yeah, you're for sure not saying it for no reason. If I'm going to say a bracha in English, Al Pidin, blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the world, who created the who created the fruit of the tree. Yeah. But in the supposed to say, blessed are you, Lord our God, blessed are you, Hashem Elokeinu, King of the world. That part should be said lashon kodesh ideally. That's all I'm saying.
But that's in English. Something else says Hashem Elokeinu in English.
No. It doesn't say it there. I'm just saying the translation is a translation. But let's go back there. So brachas can be said in any language. Again, but the Eibusher's name perhaps should be retained lashon kodesh possibly. As long as you stay faithful to the Chachamim's nusach when you make the bracha in English or Russian, whatever language you speak. If you change the terminology, you change the formula. Since you mentioned Eibusher's name and the fact Hashem is a king, and you make the content of the bracha, either you change some other whatever else you change. Even so you have two problems here. Number one, you changed it. Right. Number two, it's not lashon kodesh. But as long as you mention Hashem's name, Hashem's monarchy, His Eibusher's malchus, you are Yotzei b'diavad. Halacha Zayin. Kol brachas kol all brachas tarach mashmiya la'oznei mashu. You have to say it audibly out loud. If you say it quietly that you can't even hear yourself, Yatsa, Yam says Yotzei, Bein Sheitz, B'sfas, whether you verbalize it, Bein Shebech, you said it in your heart.
You don't even have to say the words.
According to the Rambam, you could say it in your heart. Yeah. No, I'm saying L'chayr to b'diavad. L'chadchil, you have to say it out loud. B'diavad quietly, even in your mind, according to the Rambam, Yotzei. And Shulchan Aruch, the Alter talks about this. He quotes from over here, and basically we're machar to do that. But if a person's in Einis and he's mechuyev b'na'ater to bench, he can be saying on this. On this opinion.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, fine. But there's more to say on that, but there's not a halacha shir. I just got to sound smart because I have the pasuk written down in the bottom. Okay. I didn't look this up inside. Halacha kol brachas kol all the brachas. Between the bracha and the thing that you're making the bracha on, the food, the smell, the mitzvah, whatever it is, you should not make interruption of any kind. If you do make interruption, so take a second bracha. The first bracha becomes void. If the interruption is something which is relevant to the thing you make a bracha on, then you don't have to go in and make a second bracha. Keta, for example, because the person makes a bracha on bread. So what you do at that moment? Immediately eat the bread, right?
Yeah.
The person can also say, if you're quiet, you just wait and you don't do it on purpose. You take time and you don't make her eat it. If it's less than chedibur, it could also be a hefsek possibly. You have to be careful with that.
It's more than chedibur.
Yeah, you should. As soon as you make a bracha, eat it. If in fact you're silent, you can't just sit there and do nothing, right?
Right.
You hear, I'm making a bracha. I want to finish and hear what this guy's saying. Okay, then I eat it. You shouldn't do that, right? That's okay. Fine. Because the person makes a bracha on bread. But prior to eating, he says, "Hey, melach, bring salt." You're not supposed to eat dry, plain bread. If it's bread, it's pure flour and water. It says not to eat it by itself. If it's either you should have dip in something, or in the dough. If let's say in the dough ingredients, besides for having just flour and water, it's also salt or whatever. Yeah. That's okay as well. So it says
flour and water you shouldn't eat
by itself. So it's called pasach, dry bread. I forgot there's a reason for it. Akitzer, so you say bring salt, dip the bread in salt. If you touch, bring food for the.
What do you do matzah and Pesach?
So that's an exception. That's not going to matzah. Not a Pesach, not a is an exception because the mitzvah of matzah, because tam is mavatul. Right? Yeah, so that's different. That's the exception. We had this idea a few days ago about dipping the salt 3 times, and you look in the
don't throw the salt on.
Yes, if you look in the Hayom Mavur, the backstory, I think he explains all this whole thing about that. So why dafka to put salt, different opinions, different Chaim Non, and the Shar Koil will go back and forth about this, as they always do. Akitzer, And Chabad.org on the Chitas app, if you on Yemim, you have Yosef Katzman that often has he explains how Yemim with all these backstories. Yeah. Oh, very good. So you heard that. So you heard that. Okay. Havir Tafshil. So he says, bring food. Give this person to eat. Why is that crucial? I'm not sure. Right, in other words, even though it's not essential, but it's relevant. Mela bring salt, bring food, the bread you shouldn't buy itself. Give him food as well. That's like not essential, but it's relevant. That's enough. Give food to the animal because you're not allowed to eat before you feed your animals. But in this case, you're not mechuyev to make a new bracha. And same thing applies in all similar situations. For example, you make a bracha on a mitzvah shofar and make a Megillah, and afterwards you say, bring the Megillah, turn it over, I can't read, bracha closer, so whatever, something relevant. Okay.
That's why with Shoyad and Shorosh, and especially Miftatum, you tell the guy, okay, now we're going to put on the headpiece, and he's repeating because that's what he does. Yeah. Okay, now we're going to put it on the headpiece. So
exactly.
It doesn't have to make al mitzvah.
In that case, correct. Yeah. Halacha test. Kol brachas kulon, all the brachas mutter lam tamei brachas, and a person is allowed to make the bracha. We looked at this also for the person tamei latin Torah, same concept. Even though bracha is holy, a person is tamei may say a bracha. Bein shay tamei tu mashu dachul asmen abiyim. Whether it's a tumor which a person could theoretically remove himself that day, like a tful yom, exactly. Or he can go to the mikveh and he's tar. Bein tu masheni dachul asmen abiyim, which to me can't remove that day. Neither can. She's not shy, right? Or Tmei Meis, 6-7 days. In other words, in either it might think that's, for example, Nidor or Tmei Meis is more severe. You might think that he's not allowed to. But a guy coming to a sheretz, maybe he's fine. Or Parfakeret. Guy is coming to Tmei Meis, he could say bracha. The poor guy can't go out of his Tmei anyway. It takes a week, right? To have the paraduma sprinkle on you. Or Nidor also, it takes 7 days. A person who is coming to Mesharetz, he could go to the mikveh if he wants to, so go to the mikveh and make the bracha afterwards. There is no, he can say a bracha when he's coming, it's not a problem. However, a person is not allowed to say a bracha when he's naked. Till his erev is covered, the same way we have mechuyev to cover himself for Kriya Shema. For a man. A woman, she's allowed to sit with her flesh flush against the ground. She can say bracha, she's not considered naked.
Back
then, people didn't have any clothes, they were poor, right? So they had one pair of clothes to wear on the outside. Inside, they didn't wear things, I don't know. So the halacha is a poor guy, he has to starve, he's not allowed to eat. So for a man, he has to physically, so for a woman, she should sit on the ground and she's allowed to sit in bracha. Yeah.
I mean, I can make a bracha as long as I cover my private parts over there.
Strictly speaking, as long as you're wearing underwear, you can say Shema, you can make a bracha.
There's a chili. You also have to cover connected liba.
No, that's for davening.
That's for
davening.
Oh.
Yeah.
And for Krishna, it's enough connected.
Yeah, exactly. Bigger I did. Yeah. Now we physically wear yarmulke. There's a lot of things.
Yeah.
Wouldn't recommend it, but that's the essential din. Yeah. Halacha yud. 1 second. Sorry. Yeah. Kol brachas, all brachas, even though you made the bracha and you ate the chiyuv of the bracha, and so I already made the bracha. In other words, I can't make it a second time now for myself. It'd be a bracha, an unnecessary bracha. I can make a bracha for someone else who was not yet yet to his obligation of making the bracha. They laid see to help him fulfill his obligation of him saying the bracha. That's the example. Doesn't know what the bracha is. As we'll see, chutz. The exception is. It's a bracha of hana, not a bracha of a mitzvah. It's a bracha of hana, food or smell. That's the mashal b'sadim, and it's a case where
apple.
Yeah, but there's no there's no mitzvah involved. Like eating an apple, there's no eating an apple, right? When is there mitzvah in an apple? There's never. Even Rosh Hashanah by night, so it's a minute, yeah. No. That's an example when you're not allowed to say the bracha of somebody else to make some mitzvah. If the case where you could say a bracha, it's because of what's called kol yisrael even zelzeh. So if you're mechuyev making a bracha, I'm mechuyev to make sure you make the bracha, so I can make the bracha for you. Mm-hmm. However, if it's not a situation as such, you're not allowed to. And you can't make a bracha for somebody else. Unless I have a no with you, so I have to also eat or have the smell. However, if it's a mitzvah, however, we're going to learn. I'm assuming we understand what he's saying. If it's a mitzvah, like for example, I already heard shofar. You have to hear shofar. I can say the bracha for you and blow shofar for you.
Oh, you cannot say the bracha and you can blow shofar without. It's not market.
Oh, hypothetically, in terms of even kind of mitzvah, but in terms of the obligation of you making the bracha, the Rambam says there's no problem for me to say the bracha for you if I want to. Right? Now, does it have to be daf because you don't know how to say the bracha? Or what if I'm a grosser rav and you want to chabad me with the bracha for your kiyuv shofar? right? So it could be the Rambam holds also. It's not a problem. It could be even like a chila. It's not clear. It could be the daf only if you can't say the bracha.
You can also make kiddush for
Right. So 1 second. So ad kan the bracha of mamash and mitzvah. That's for sure. You could say bracha of somebody else. And if it's a brichas hanen like hagaf and ramaitz, you can't say that bracha unless you're also eating or drinking. Aval brichas hanen sheish ba mitzvah. A bracha, let's say a bracha of hana, like food or smell or drink or smell. But there's a mitzvah involved going achilas matzah Pesach, eating matzah night of Pesach. The kiddush hayom and kiddush on a Friday night. Eating matzah Pesach night is a chimat Torah. The kiddush on Friday night is chimat Torah as well in terms of the kiddush itself. But the bracha, so it's a little different. Obviously over here, in other words, the point is both scenarios are considered a mitzvah. The bracha of ha'amoitzi on the matzah is considered a brichas ha'mitzvah in this regard. Because it's a brachas hana for the mitzvah can't be done without the hana of eating the food. Kiddush Friday night also is a chiyuv on one, and that cannot be done unless you make agafen. So I raise the mavarach lachem the bracha of somebody else. The eichel v'sheisim, and they can eat and drink the mitzvah material, the wine or the matzah. Hafal pi she'eni eichel v'sheisim, even though I'm not eating the matzah with him. I finished my seder already. I made kiddush already, but he wants to drink the wine. I'm going to say the kiddush. Shalom, I saw no problem. He brings him the pasuk that even Shabbos by day you could do this is considered also a shtickle chiyuv. It's interesting. Fine. Halacha.
Even on Shabbos day.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Normally, if I went in the middle of the week, I can't make a bracha for you for drinking wine.
Correct. Shabbos by day is not the same as chiyuv as Friday night. Friday night is even kiddush matayda.
Yeah.
The wine is midarabon. But the kiddush matayda, Shabbos day, b'chalal is midarabon. But still, it's a certain chiyuv of kiddush rabbah of Shabbos by day. Therefore, you're allowed to do that. Yeah. All right. Halacha yalef. Yeah. I'll call Shem bracha min bracha is mitchlas vatsefa. Whoever hears a bracha from start to finish. Let's say and he has in mind to fulfill his obligation hearing the bracha. So ad kan Lord, you can make a bracha for somebody else. But whether the person needs to make it, the point is that over here, so in any situation where a person is hearing a bracha from somebody else, he hears the whole bracha. He has in mind to be Yitzeh, and obviously the person making the bracha also has in mind to have in mind. Yatsa, that's considered that you made the bracha, hearing someone else say the bracha. And you hear it audibly, and you process that, what he's saying, so then it's as if you said it. Shemei HaKohen, right? Even though you did not say Amen. Now, a person who says Amen after the person making the bracha.
But the mevarach ladafke that he had in mind.
No, that's a problem.
Yeah.
The Ram doesn't say it over here, but it's understood that elsewhere that's the chayr. That the chayr has to be the way it is.
Or when you're making a bracha, there are people around that you have in mind that if everybody wants to,
It seems that it's very essential. That's what we remind.
Yeah.
I'd like to say the how the people that don't make a bracha now, mechaben everybody,
Right.
and you could kiss Megillah.
Sure,
All these things.
100%.
You have to tell the mevarach to be mechaben.
Yeah, right, 100%.
It's automatic.
No, not automatic. It has to be pointed out.
No, I'm saying, but that's a given. I mean,
Right.
Yeah. As John, you see, Ram doesn't have to mention it. Yeah. Because the Chayr come in Hamshach Lalach Yud, where he just said, I can make a bracha for you. Right. And he's saying that a person hears the bracha that begins to end, he has a mind to be Yitzeh, then that's enough. So we don't tell Lalach Yud, I can make a bracha for you in certain circumstances. Now Yud Aleph is saying that you also have to have a mind to make a bracha for you. And you have to hear from start to finish. And if you and that's good, that's good enough. That's exactly what it means to be made to the bracha from somebody else. Fine. So therefore, again, so call a shemei bracha min a brachos plus matzeifa v'diskav l'tzeis by the chavasei yatsa. You're the bracha from start to finish. You have a mind to fulfill the obligation. Yatsa. Afapisha lo amen, despite the fact that the person listening did not answer amen, because hearing is like shemei kaina. Hearing is like answer. A person who says amen after someone else making the bracha, right? Because answering amen obviously includes. Okay, sorry. And you heard begin till end, you answer amen. So it had mind to be Yitzeh, right? So is as if you said the bracha, not only as if you're hearing the bracha, it's as if you said the bracha yourself. What's the mila?
Yeah, what's the mila?
So the mafarshim ma'ayin. What's the mila? The fact that over here, it's not that I said the bracha b'tzat shemei kaina. It's as if I said the bracha myself, my own mouth, by answering amen. What's the mila? Other way Yitzeh. Good, fine. Okay. I'm not sure. It could be the difference is, you know what? What if you're saying the bracha? This take it for its worth. I don't know if this is true. You're saying the bracha, and I hear, and I have to say amen. I have a mind to be Yitzeh. He doesn't hear you, but he hears me. And he hears me say amen. And he has a mind to get to my amen. Does that count? Does that even hear the bracha? I don't know if that's what it is, but okay, I'm just thinking out loud.
Wasn't it a similar
No,
scenario?
no,
The story with the shul in Alexandria,
That was different. That was the
flag. You didn't hit a
We'll
bracha.
get to that. We'll get to that. That's something. We'll get to that. Yeah. That's the bracha. You should know the bracha. It's a bracha. Here the Rambam tells something important. The person making the bracha has to be a mechuyev in that bracha. If he's not mechuyev, let's say for example, he's a woman is saying bench lulav and esrog, she can't be made to you the bracha, and you bench lulav and esrog also, right? Because she's not mechuyev matera. Let's say the person making the bracha mechuyev the rabbanim. For example, the person Ruvain ate a kazayas of bread and he's still hungry. He's not the savata, he's still hungry. The person hearing benching from him is chayav matera. Shimon had a whole loaf of bread. He's satisfied. He's chayav bench matera. Shimon can't be fulfills the obligation of benching by hearing Ruvain bench. He has to hear the benching or answer amen from someone who's mechuyev like him, because Ruvain is not mechuyev matera really. Only from the rabbanim, therefore wouldn't count according to the Rambam. People got together. They gathered to drink, eat bread together, a meal together, or to drink wine together. To drink, sit there, have well, say beer, not beer, wine, right? They sit down to drink wine together. And one of them made a bracha for all of them. One of them said a bracha agafen. And they all answered amen. Is allowed to eat and drink. There's an assumption that a person saying it out loud when they gather together is doing it for everybody else. Therefore, he doesn't have to say he's being made to them. They don't have to tell him please be made to me. It is by default that they're all yitzhak. They did not have intention to eat together. Both found themselves at the same time in the same pizza shop. Even they end up eating from one, sharing one pizza pie. Everyone has to say his own bracha, because since they didn't sit to eat it as a group, they're considered individuals, and therefore one's not made to the other by default unless he asks him to, obviously. Now, one is true, but passed down both is true of bread and wine. Other food and drinks, they don't require the meaning the formality of sitting together as individuals. Even if it's haphazardly, one makes a bracha for all of them, then they all can eat and drink, and it's considered that they all were in his bracha. Eli did not have kavana to eat together as one. Meaning wine and bread is apparently chashiv. The only time I relinquish my own bracha, my wine or my bread, is if we sit and my brace and S together, right? Then one person's bracha is ready. If it's not that hichatimsa, then everybody says their own bracha. But Mela, if it's considered even so, therefore, if everyone comes together, I have no problem. So therefore, I have no problem making one person's a bracha. Everybody's not a big deal. So on other foods according to the Rambam, but the Rabbi argues with you, right? He says the opposite. But other foods according to the Rambam, the idea of one person making a bracha for everybody is a given. Why not? The fact that we're together in one place, we'll all say one person will say the bracha together. One person says everybody. When it comes to wine and bread, that's chashiv. In that case, every person wants to have their own bracha on their own bread. Unless we sit together as a group, then one person makes everybody. Otherwise, no. That's the Rambam's opinion. Yeah. Our meaning is nowadays on all scenarios every person says on bracha. By the Veltake, Shabbos the Marshal, one person says Hamaitzi, everyone's Yetzer. No one says on bracha Hamaitzi. It's only in the Chabad, as far as I know, based on the letter of the Rebbe in Chelek Daled, that everyone says on Hamaitzi. That's the letter of the Rebbe. Apparently, it was a mini Chabad because
you don't say your own praise very often.
That's true. Correct. That one exactly.
Yeah, but the Rebbe says by us we say Hamaitzi.
Yeah. Someone wrote to the Rebbe who was a rabbi. I guess he wrote this that you tell me that you see by Anash. I think it was Extra that all Anash, everyone's on Hamaitzi. Like, why is that? There was a whole long letter explaining why that's how it's done, and then I guess that letter became publicized enough. It became the official minhag Chabad. Till then, it was Chabad practice. It wasn't minhag Chabad. It was standard Chabad practice.
But according to this, you don't have to.
According to this, by bread and wine, you
no.
Oh yeah, Hanami. That's the mucker. That's not doing anything wrong. The question why we all say our own bracha, and there's a few reasons for it. That's
but according to this one, you shouldn't.
Right.
According to this, you don't have to, and it could be you say you shouldn't if you right exactly. If you have someone al-babish by your house, tell them because they're not going to make their own hamaitzi, right? They're going to be similar. You should tell them unless you want to have them in mind. Make sure they make their own hamaitzi, right?
Well, it's not FCK.
No.
It's not an issue.
That's one of the reasons why we say our own hamaitzi. That's why we. I think that's part of it.
What has it?
As I'm raising the bread, they put their hands on the bread too, and they make the bracha.
That's when they're being because they hold Beit Mishnah. They also want to have put their hands on the bread. But they are saying that's something else. That's something else. I'm talking about a case where, but most places, everyone around the table doesn't come to the lechem. Everyone sits in their place. Never comes to where it's something else. Especially the women don't do it, right? Halacha Yud Gimel. Every person that hears another Jewish person making a bracha of any one of the brachas, despite the fact you not hear the bracha from start to finish, all you heard was the end. Nevertheless, he's not chayiv in that bracha. He's not going to be yitzah. Nevertheless, chayiv on something he's mechuyev to answer amen. Just the last word, let's say. If he was a non-Jew, a min or a heretic, a kuti, or a person who did not accept Torah B'Shabbat Peh, a teenager from Islam, or a child who's just saying the bracha not to eat. The child's in cheder, and what's the bracha on an apple? He says, it's bracha on a potato, or he's an adult and he has to eat. But he went and changed the bracha from the nusach of Chachamim in such a fashion that is even slightly different. Or could you could say pshat daf in a way it's so different. Not yitzah. You don't say amen after that.
This Shabbos we had a scenario that we had a Down syndrome made a bracha, and he doesn't give it out properly. So
yeah. Right.
You answer amen.
I don't know. Good question. Ask her. Ask her. One person asks, "Amen." You shouldn't have to have a chapter amen, which means because the Rambam Pashup Pshat is that you say amen before the guy finishes the bracha. Everyone does Rish Chodesh or Bechal. Before the guy finishes Shalom, everyone's already saying amen, right? Nor a amen, which is listening. Amen with the nun is not pronounced. Amen could say not a short amen where he doesn't pronounce the alpha, he just says mate instead of amen. But amen arucha, not amen like amen. Shouldn't do that. Bein is an average amen. You shouldn't say amen louder than the person making the bracha. A person who does not hear the bracha, even though he's chayiv in that bracha, he shouldn't. He shouldn't answer amen together with the other people saying the bracha. Halacha tezvav. Kol mavarach bracha she'en tzricha. Person makes the bracha. It's not necessary. Not the time the bracha about telling him he's not enough food in front of him. He makes a bracha in a scenario where like for example, he you could say he's a burden of flushes and right away starts eating again. He makes a new bracha just to make more brachas. He's not supposed to do that. He's saying Hashem Shem's name in vain. Because it says severe is swearing in vain. It's not forbidden to say amen after it. The children, we teach them to say brachas. You're allowed to teach them the brachas with Hashem's name. Right. Even though they're not eating anything right now, they're just making the bracha to learn. You don't say amen afterwards though. If you say amen after them, it doesn't count because they can't be made to you.
The bar mitzvah boy gets up there and says the brachas for Brachos Torah. Brachos Hashem, he says. Exactly.
Person who answers amen after his own brachas is disgraceful. If it's a multiple bracha, if it's after bracha of something, that is praiseworthy. For example, after the series of brachas. That's okay. For example, after the series of bracha of Shema at nighttime, the famous of called bracha, she was safe brachas not before the mitzvah, like the three brachas before lighting the menorah. You don't say amen after that because it's before, but it's bracha afterwards. For example, the brachas of after according to Rambam, you say amen at the end. You'd sign. Why do we say amen after Bnei Shalom? It's not the end of the brachas. It's the bracha after that. The bracha that wasn't the benching used to end the Brachos. Later on, the times the Mishnah the bracha to thank Hashem that the corpses of Beitar were allowed to be buried. I will say the ikar bracha shall must and Bnei Shalom. The ikar bracha shall me'atayda is then the Bnei Shalom. Bnei Shalom. Yeah. So lama yana amin achar Abba Shalom. What about Abba Shalom? The chayr it's two brachas in a row. Brichas Krishma. Peishi bracha sarishay. It's not a bracha achreina. It's a bracha rishayna prior to Krishma. Chen kol. You don't say Abba Shalom ba'hava amin. You don't do that. Chen kol to build brachas and bracha la ois come till davar. Simply any bracha that you make prior to something. You go bracha shem bracha al fi Krishma Megillah. Brachas Chanukah. The brachas that are prior to Menorah and Megillah. The yavsik ba'amin bracha ben davar shem bracha. Do not separate by saying amin between the brachas and the thing you make a bracha on like the there. Once you amen after brachas appears and after bracha, let's say burn flushes, let's say, or
you shouldn't say a bracha.
The patient
you shouldn't say amen.
No, the obvious person saying the bracha. Yeah, I'm talking about the person saying the bracha. Someone else should. Beishi bracha achas is only one bracha. Al appears al michya. Then oina amen achar bracha achreinish kadmeish bracha acheres brachas. You only say amen after a bracha prior bracha. That before that were other brachas. You can go in brachas to melach brachas to God look ben, which is it has to be multiple brachas and a a bracha following, which is, for example, the bracha that the king makes by Hakel. Rambam tells us about that. The bracha of the king on Yom Kippur. The idea that the brachas are finished, therefore only should be answered. Lucky your test. Also, whoever eats a forbidden food, intentionally or unintentionally, you don't say bracha prior or afterwards. For example, a person ate tevel, even tevel that Rabbanan doesn't matter was taken. The tumor was not separated. But in the case where Truma is not Matera, a Maisa Sheni of Hektish, Liftu Kachasim, Mavarach, or a Maisa Sheni or Hektish that was not separated, they did not praise it properly, and Mavarach, because it's also Darabana. It's not lame, Machal, this Tefis, Shoshan, Nesach, it's forbidden, obviously, you don't say Brachal, last of Chachav, Abdi Lachal, Demai, Afapisha, in Real, and Aniyim, Demai, however, which is in the Kingdom, is only for Aniyim, that's, okay, let's finish over here, we'll start with this after.